Have you heard of the polarity shift? Here's the equation behind it and why it is such a big deal right now. There are three parts to this equation, and souls came seated with missions that correlate to each of these three steps. The first part of the equation is we need polarity stretched to the max. We need it so far tipping into darkness and distortion that this energetic scaffolding collapses. And yes, there are souls seated here to help push polarity. The second part of the equation is we need a certain percentage of the collective to start waking up. We don't need them fully enlightened, but we do need them to be questioning what is going on. We need just enough people to start realizing something is off and start looking deeper. And we see this happening in society, on social media, and in our daily lives. People are starting to question the status quo, question how things have been going, and poking holes. And this is a really interesting part of the equation because if you think about it, if we see people questioning the status quo on social media or in society, you often see this helps wake up some people. Some people think, okay, that is weird. I'm going to deep dive into this, go into the rabbit holes. And then other people get really triggered by it. And at first I thought that was bad, that people would get triggered by it. But now that I see this full equation, I see even if some people react in a really negative way, that is actually helping push the polarity to peak it and collapse it as well. And I just think understanding this equation does help us just step back and be the observer in these kind of situations. And I think this really helps the next part of the equation I'm about to talk about. And this next part of the equation is we need a new frequency scaffolding in place to catch the collapse. And yes, there are souls seated here with this mission, and I call these people white hole stabilizers. So if these white hole stabilizers are here to hold this high frequency and create this energetic scaffolding and grid that the black hole eventually collapses into, it is so good for these people to understand the equation and understand that some polarity is actually good for the equation. So these people can step back and just observe and not get caught up emotionally. Because these people are here to hold the high frequency that humanity will shift into. And this is actually the part that other timelines were missing before. We've had opportunities to shift like this in the past, but we were missing this part of the equation. We were missing the white hole frequency scaffolding that the black hole would shift into. And if you're missing that piece, when polarity collapses, it just collapses into the same distortion. And actually, an example of this was the fall of Rome. And call me crazy, but do you remember that recent trend when men were obsessed with the collapse of the Roman Empire? And there was another trend going around where people said, "My Roman Empire is." I seriously think that is just in the collective conscious, and that was coming up through those trends because it's like a collective conscious thing saying, hey, knock knock, we're at this point again. You know what I mean? But this time it's different because the white hole scaffolding is already in place. So the architecture is here. We just need more people waking up and being able to embody and hold this tone. That is why I talk nonstop about white hole embodiment. It's not enough to just think high vibe thoughts. We need to actually get our bodies in the place where we can anchor in this high frequency energy and hold this grid. It's physical. It's not just in our mind. We need to physically anchor in source energy through our bodies. And if this resonates with you, you are probably a white hole stabilizer. So definitely follow along because I talk nonstop about white hole embodiment. And if you do think you're a white hole stabilizer, I definitely recommend going to listen to my podcast episode about Metatronic light, the Merkaba, and the architecture of coherence, because that will give you great background and detail on the mechanics of how our bodies become literally a light engine and how we start creating a reality that mirrors our tone and our coherence. And that is so important for white hole stabilizers to do. And if it resonates, please leave a comment. I'd love to hear more about your journey. Love ya.